Neil, so we have quorum now. We have in the room with me David and Aaron. So we're good to go if you want to call the meeting to order.
All right. Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order this morning at 10:21. I'm just going to read the acknowledgement to start. We begin the gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place for the first peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. So the first thing we should do is adopt the minutes, the agenda for the meeting. Can I get a motion for that?
So David is moving that.
Okay, David, and a second. I can second. And all in favor? I don't think that there's anything under item 3. Item 4, adoption of the minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes from November 5th? Okay,
Aaron is going to move that and David is going to second it.
Okay, David, okay, all in favor? Okay. I do not believe we have any. Do we have any presentations? Will that be Richard a bit later?
No, there are no deputations or presentations.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, we'll move on to number 6 then. Reports to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Janet, did you want to speak to the annual accessibility status report?
So just to get that on the floor, we do need the mover and the seconder just to get it on the floor, and then I can very quickly speak to it.
Okay, so can I get a motion, a mover then, I guess? I can put my name up.
And just
And
we
a
need a seconder.
Yep,
So that's Aaron has seconded that. So just to very quickly go over this, this is a requirement every year that we do post on our website an annual accessibility update report. The report really just shows some of the accomplishments that we've seen over 2024. So for the county, the big one, of course, is the continuation of the trail and the work that we have done on that, as well as the redevelopment of the administration buildings. So that was a huge one for the county. And as the committee may recall, we had, this committee had a review team that came in and looked through the building, did a walkthrough of it, made some recommendations to the senior leadership at the county. And the majority of those have been either implemented or on the books to be implemented as upgrades are made. So those are the big ones for the county. Again, there's the achievements there for each of the 4 townships. And these are mainly things that you have seen throughout the year with a few additions. The ones there's ones there for North Frontenac, Central Frontenac, South Frontenac, and Frontenac Islands. So in terms of looking forward to next year, again, for the county, it will be again the continuation of the trail, because that's really the only thing that the county does that would create barriers to the public from what we do. So, and you'll see there is a trails report on the agenda as well. Today, Richard comes usually at each meeting to provide updates to the trail. There's some there from the Township of South Frontenac as well. I'm not sure, James, if you wanted to speak to the big one for you guys again for the same thing is that redevelopment of your administration building, but that will be a key focus for them moving forward in 2025. So again, it's just a report that we do have to put up on our website just to let the public know everything that has taken place over the last year. Mainly, these are all things that the committee has seen throughout the year.
Okay, and so we just need a motion for that then? Or is it all in favor? Okay.
So it's an all in favor right now, yes.
Yeah, okay, so all in favor then. Okay, perfect. Okay, then does that takes us to the trail then? Um, uh, B there, so the Campy Trail is, that would be Richard, I guess, that's gonna speak to that.
So again, just before we put it on the floor, we do need the mover and the seconder to move the motion to
Okay,
just get it on the floor, and then Richard can speak to it.
okay, well,
So
I can
Mr.
be the first.
Yerxa is moving that,
Okay,
and Aaron is seconding it.
okay. Sorry, who was the first one again?
Thank you, committee. I'm happy to be here to bring this report, speaking to e-bikes, e-scooters, mobility scooters, and other forms of what's called micro-mobility on the KMP Trail. With the emergence of electric-powered vehicles, we're seeing a real diversity of new types of devices being used throughout our communities and on our trails. And during council deliberations on another issue around motorized vehicles on the trail, the council asked me to look into what actually a motorized vehicle would be, and whether that includes mobility devices, e-bikes, e-scooters, and micro mobility, other forms of micro mobility. So in this report, we go through and take a look at primarily the mobility scooters and the e-bikes, but then we also discuss the emerging electric kick scooters and low-speed vehicles. And so just a brief description of all of them verbally for everybody. We have so when it comes to an e-bike, e-bikes, so long as they have pedals and are powered with less than 500 watts of power, they can be kilowatts of power. Sorry, they can be are considered bicycles under the Highway Traffic Act currently, and so they so in terms of provincial regulation, an electric bicycle is considered a bicycle unless you make modifications to it that would turn it into something more like a moped, or that requires it to be then licensed, insured, and have a driver. And so we would, if the e-bike was modified to be a motorcycle, we would treat it like a motorcycle on the trail. When it comes to mobility scooters, under provincial legislation, they're treated as pedestrians under the law. They're required to go on sidewalks and act as similar to or the same as pedestrians, and so they're not defined as any other kind of type of vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act or otherwise. And so we're recommending that we continue to remain in alignment, and we don't consider mobility scooters motorized vehicles in terms of the management of the KMP Trail. Then we get to these electric kick scooters. We don't see a lot in Frontenac County just yet, or even in Kingston. In larger cities, we see these rental companies that have electric kick scooters, and there are pilot programs under the province where providing a lot of direction about how they're driven. So, for example, they're required to the electric kick scooters are required to be at least 16 years old to operate them. They have to be on highways. They can't be on the sidewalks, but they don't require license, registration, or insurance. And then finally, we look at low-speed vehicles, which is an emerging form of vehicle. They're electric vehicles that have a bit more power than your typical mobility scooter. Some of them are enclosed. They're required to be licensed and registered and driven on roads in communities that are participating in the provincial pilot program. But and so they function like a motor vehicle, but they're limited in speed to under 50 kilometers an hour. Usually, their maximum speed is about 40. And so we're starting to see some of those on the roads, and some versions of those are small enough that they might show up on the trails or be used on the trails. And at this time, we're recommending that they be that they remain on the roads and not on the trails, as they're not motorized recreational vehicles in the same way that an ATV or side-by-side might be. They're not necessarily built, the trail's not necessarily built with grades to support these kinds of vehicles. So any questions about any of the recommendations in here, which there's recommendations to update the bylaw, or any comments or input from the committee would be appreciated as we collect this information and then take it forward to council for discussion and integration into the management of the KMP trail.
I just have a quick question.
Come up through YouTube.
This one?
Yep.
Have to touch it? Okay. I'm just wondering if there's been any feedback from anyone who uses a mobility scooter on the trail, like just wondering about, you're talking about the grading and all of that, of it, if it's truly accessible for them or if there are blocks.
There are some locations on the trail that are more difficult. We try to sign those. They're about the changing grade. We had a discussion at this committee maybe a year ago where in Verona, a place where motorized users turn a corner, they berm it a little bit, so it changes the grade, the cross slope, and so that can be more difficult for some of the users with mobility devices. But for the most part, we try to maintain a fairly level cross slope so that we don't encounter that. And when we do encounter or hear about the berming, we try to go out and fix it.
I just have a quick question, Richard. Did you say that the low speed vehicles aren't permitted on the path?
Yes, my recommendation at this time, while they're emerging, is that we don't permit them on the path. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They look like tiny clown cars type things. They fit one person, and many of them are sold by mobility scooter companies. We don't really know much about their capabilities, and my concern is that if we did permit them on the path, we would have to treat them as a motorized vehicle, so they would have to go in the same parts of the path as an ATV or a side-by-side. But our hesitancy right now to proceed with permitting this kind of vehicle on the trail is that the path is meant for recreational purposes primarily, and that these vehicles may not be equipped to be on the path for recreational purposes. As far as things stand right now, and we're certainly monitoring the evolution of these vehicles.
And just one other question: what power, like both an electric kick scooter, I'm assuming that's something that you stand on, and the low speed vehicles, what powers are they battery powered, both of those?
Yes, in the case of all four devices discussed in this report, they're battery powered, and so they're all powered by small electric motors.
Okay, all right, thanks. Were there any other questions from anybody? All right, so can I get all in favor then for that?
So all members here are voting in favor.
Yep, okay, perfect. All right. Well, then that takes us to point 7, township updates. I think the only update we had was for the township of North Frontenac. Did anyone want to speak to that, or do we just want to leave it for people to review themselves online?
So those are provided mainly for the committee's information, but if there's
Okay.
any questions, staff are certainly here to answer those.
All right. All right, well, we'll move on then to, we don't have any communications then, I guess, or other business?
So perhaps, Mr. Allen, just under other business, and I should have done this at the very beginning of the committee meeting, but I would like to welcome David Yerxa back to the committee. As many of you know, Kurt Halliday was unable to really attend the meetings for whatever reasons. So Mr. Yerxa has graciously been willing to accept this appointment. So we'd like to welcome him back to the committee. He's a very staunch supporter of accessibility in not only his township, but in the county as a whole, as well as I think the province. So I'd like to welcome David back. And it's great to see that he and Aaron are able to commute together. So
Thank you very much. Excellent. Yeah, that's excellent. It's nice to have lots of members. So we move on to number 10 then. So we were proposing some following dates to be put on the table so that we could have some the next 3 or 4 dates sort of set in place. Do the numbers that are in the agenda look okay to everybody?
yeah, so at the last meeting, staff were asked to sort of work together and come up with the best possible dates. There were a few dates that were not available to North Frontenac, so we did work around those. And for South Frontenac, the last Wednesday of the month was the best, and there was really no objections to it. So that's what we've set out under the committee's mandate. They do meet 4 times a year. So we've just set those dates out as quarterly. So the next one would be April 30th. The one after that would be July 30th and then October 29th. And that really sits nicely to accept the nominations for the Access Award, which is presented typically in November. So if there's no objections to those dates, then we can get those into everyone's calendar.
All right. There's no objections here. So I guess we'll just move on to adjourn the meeting then.
Yes, so we just need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, I can motion.
So Aaron has moved the motion
Okay.
and David has seconded it.
Aaron, okay, Aaron and David. Again, all in favor? Great. All right. Well, the meeting is adjourned then. That was a quick one.
All right, so thank you,
So
everyone.
thank you.
And
Yeah. Go ahead, Janet.
all right, well, that's it then. So thank you, everyone. And I'm just going to end the meeting now.